Greetings to all. This is Truth is Out, and I'm Chris Dorr. We have a very important guest with us today called Benjamin Fulford. He has been a journalist for the Forbes magazine for many years, and he's the owner of the website benjaminfulford.net. He's also the spokesperson for the White Dragon Society, which involves many groups from the military to the government in many different countries trying to liberate the planet from the control of the cabal, better known as shadow government or the deep state. Hello, Ben. How are you?
Oh, fine. Hello. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I was going to ask you many questions, but your last article was so interesting, and we are in such a historical moment that first I must ask you if you could please explain us what the fall of the three obelisks means. Is the war against the cabal over? Is the quantum financial system going to be reality soon enough? The financial reset everyone is talking about?
Okay. The first thing is we're talking about something that's been happening for thousands of years. We're talking about a whole planet, and so it's not going to be a sudden announcement, and then the next day everything's different. It's going to happen over the coming months and years. It's a sort of like a good analogy is say you're in a super tanker and there was a fight in the captain's cabin because the captain had become crazy and the captain was taken away and locked away, and then a new captain took over and started, even so, because there's so much momentum, it takes a long time to turn the ship around. But you have seen many things. This has been going on for a while, but you can see many things have happened. You saw that Hillary Clinton was not elected, even though it was supposed to happen that way. You could see that the Pope resigned. The founder of the Bilderberg, Queen Beatrix, resigned. The King of Spain resigned. The King of Belgium resigned. There's been people like David Rockefeller and George Soros and George Bush Sr. died. So there has been a big change at the top, but it's going to take time. But what really happened, what was really big about last week was that when Vladimir Putin met with the Pope in Rome, the Russian Orthodox Church and the uh, what you call the Farnese family, the people who built the Pentagon, came to an agreement, which means that you will now see cooperation between the U.S. and the Russian military. And that's a very big thing because together they can, really have a huge effect on what happens in this planet. In the case of London, what you saw was Boris Johnson, who favors a hard Brexit, becoming prime minister. So again, that's a fundamental change. Um, and in Washington D.C., with the rearrest of Jeffrey Epstein and the big pedophile blackmail scandal being the number one news item, you can see that the long-awaited arrests have started there. So you can see that Washington, London, and Rome have all had a change in a fundamental direction. And that'll have a lot of effects in many ways over the coming months and years. But this is just the West, okay? The three pyramids or the three obelisks are just Western structures. So what'll happen now is there's going to be negotiations with the Asian secret societies, and that's going to take some time. You'll see it in the public. You'll see it in the form of some kind of peace deal in the Korean Peninsula. You'll see it when there's a regime change in Japan, and you'll see it when China and the U.S. Reach a new deal. And finally, if all goes well, you'll see it in they're going to shut down the financial markets, the stock market, everything, and they're going to reboot it. That might happen. And certainly they're preparing for it. And the thing I am personally pushing for is the start of a future planning agency that's anybody can join if they're good enough, and it'll be transparently run. In other words, a meritocratically run future planning agency that will carry out a multi-trillion-dollar campaign to end poverty and stop environmental destruction. If you see this new agency starting, that will be a very big sign, because that'll mean that real on the ground things will happen. And the final thing to look for is Jubilee. That is a one off write off of all debts, public and private, and a redistribution of assets. If we see that, then for sure you'll know. You'll know when your own personal life is deeply affected by these changes. I always tell people, worry about what you're closest to, your own family, your own friends, your own place where you're living, and see what's going on there before you worry about bigger things like China or the United States or anything like that. So if this change is real, you'll feel it in your personal life.
And what about the gold back monetary system? Is it going to be a reality? Is it going on? Is going
Uh,
on?
the problem with a gold-backed monetary system is that, according to the people who own the gold, the golden rule is that whoever owns the gold makes the rules. So it's not going to be gold backed. It's going to be backed by a basket of real world assets. In other words, it's going to be backed by things like wheat, gold, silver, copper, corn, oil, real things. But it's going to be backed by reality. It's not just going to be numbers put on computers by hidden people. Uh, but it's going to be a basket of real world things. It's not just going to be gold. That's what I understand.
That's good. So the three main groups controlling the planet are then Washington, London, and the Vatican then?
Controlling the West, okay? Asia is its own thing. You're going to have to deal with the Asian secret societies, and they're roughly split into what you could call the farmers and the horsemen, or the visibly you'll see the Peking and China on one side, and Korea, Japan on the other. Those two are the two main axes, and then of course there's India and Africa, and they're also going to have to get involved. By the way, there's a lot of very good things happening with Africa. They formed a 55 nation union. They all have the same passport. So you're going to see soon there's going to be a new superpower with 1.3 billion people called Africa. It's not going to be Nigeria and Liberia and Angola. It's going to be Africa. And that's a very big change.
That's good. That's good, because Africa was for a long time in a very bad situation. So I'm glad they are retaking the sovereignty. So can you tell us, Ben, what is the Earth Alliance? Everyone is talking about the Earth Alliance.
Well, the Earth Alliance is, there are many words for it, but what's happening is that due to, improved communications, lots of things that were secret in the past are not secret anymore. And, excuse me, I don't use the word Earth Alliance. There are many different phrases for it. But, I mean, humanity is waking up. I think what we're seeing is the birth of a whole new way of thinking about the planet. It's like we're communicating like we never have before, and we're learning that about bad people who were in power, and we're saying we don't want them in power anymore. So it's an awakening of the people of the planet, and a demand on their part that the leadership start doing good. I think that's it's a vague thing, but it's a great planetary awakening. I think it's better,
Yes.
I think it's the start of a new age.
Yes, it's happening. It's happening.
Yes.
So, what is Gesara, or I don't know the pronunciation in English. Gesara.
Okay. There's been many different proposals for a new financial system, and Gesara is one of them, and they each have their support. And the end result is going to, combine the best elements of Gesara and other things. But at this point, I would warn people about doing things like buying Zimbabwe dollars and expecting they're going to go up in value. It's not going to be something like that. There's a lot of con artists out there trying to use this discussion about improvement in the global financial system to sell bogus financial instruments. Uh, you know, remember, everybody, if it's too good to be true, it's not true. Beware of con men.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
So is Brexit really a way for the Britain to redeem itself from the oppression of the cabal? Is it really?
Yeah, I mean, uh, England separating from the EU. I mean, the EU. Let's face it. They just chose a new president in a totally undemocratic way. It's not really a democratic institution. It's kind of an attempt to rebuild the Soviet Union, and now there is the 47 member organization of democracies that's going to take over, and that includes Russia and Turkey. So you're going to see the EU fade away and a bigger union of democracies take over. And England will be part of that, but they'll also be, linked to the rest of the world in other ways, such as the Commonwealth and the English-speaking world. And I think England's going to be like a new type of Switzerland, a neutral place for people to do business.
Is it really United States independent from Great Britain? I mean, because I think the center of the power is in Europe, really. So the European Union is like the dictatorship center of the world, in a way, isn't it?
No, it's the dictatorship center of Europe. Okay, the the European Union does not control the United States, nor does England. But what is happening is that uh, a new consensus is emerging. One among the English-speaking peoples that we should stay united by our common culture and our common history, and the other is that a feeling that it's not us versus them. We all share the same planet. We breathe the same air. We use the same oceans, and we've got to stop thinking in terms of different groups fighting each other. That's not the right kind of thinking.
Yeah, we are all one humankind, and it's true. I totally agree.
Yeah.
So North Korea is part of the cabal, or what's going on with North Korea? Because they use North Korea and Iran as the enemy. So what's going on with these two countries? Because in the news they are all day with the Iran and the North Korea speech going on
The
forever.
Yeah, the old cabal was always based its policy on getting two different forces to fight each other, and they always needed an external enemy to distract people from themselves. So they tried to create a bad guy. It used to be easy. It was like the communists, and then that kind of fell apart. And then they had this vague war on terror, but that didn't really work. So they're trying to they need a bad man, a bogeyman. So they've been trying to do that with Iran and with North Korea, but that's not working either. This whole idea of we have an enemy we must fight is just wrong, and that's ending. So now it's not an enemy we must fight. It's like a new friend we must get friendlier with. It's a new thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. We are one humankind, as we say. So it's really, we must unite, isn't it?
Yes.
So what's going on with the Iranian deal? Is it a way to expose the Clintons and the Bushes and all these cabal people?
Well, I think that these are two separate things. One is that there's negotiations going on with Iran to bring them into the whole new system, and negotiations sometimes involve bluffing and pounding desks and walking out of the room and making threats, but it's all show, and it's just horse trading. But it's really trying to figure out how to divide the Middle East between the Persian Empire and the Arabs, as it were. You got to history. Continues to the present. So if you look back at the history, you will understand what's going on today. So really, it's trying to figure out what the borders of the new Persian Empire are going to be in the greater Middle East, and that's just where that's what it all boils down to, and I think that's where the horse trading is going on right now. Now, as far as the Clintons and the Bushes and all that kind of stuff goes on, it's better to look at what's happening in the United States. George Bush Sr. was executed. George Bush Jr. has been arrested. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton are almost certainly going to be arrested. So look at what happens in the United States if you want to see what happens to the Clintons and those people. The criminals are going to be arrested. No matter how powerful, they're no longer above the law.
That's good. That's good. So is it Epstein part of this arrest then?
That's like the thread that they pull on to unravel the whole thing. Epstein was, if you look at his black book, there's 1,000 very high-level celebrities, politicians, billionaires on there, and at the very least, they were offered the temptation of sex with underage people, and if they accepted, they were blackmailed by having it videotaped. And I'm sure many of those people resisted the temptation, and we'll find out who. But that's going to lead to a much, much darker thing. It's one thing to have sex with a 15-year-old who looks like an 18-year-old. It's another thing to torture and murder a 10-year-old. And it's the torturers and murderers that we're chasing after right now. And we may forgive some of the people who were blackmailed because they had sex with a 15-year-old who looked older, in order to get at the really bad people who were literally torturing children in order to extract, adrenaline-related chemicals and just for sadistic pleasure. These are the people we're chasing after.
Yeah. I hope nobody's above the law, because sometimes it seems like that,
Yeah, it's been happening. We've been waiting very, very long time for this justice, and I think it's finally happening. In fact, I know it's finally happening. Yeah. I know that at level, the good guys have won, okay? And this will be increasingly obvious in the news over the coming months and years.
Yeah. Well, the news are totally controlled by the cabal. That's another problem, isn't it?
Well, yes and no. I mean, they control large corporate media outlets, but they're losing that control very quickly, and nobody believes their lies anyway. People are getting the truth now, and it's sort of like Pravda just before the Soviet Union fell. That's what's happening with a lot of these outlets. Nobody's believing their lies anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Do you know if John Kerry was arrested? Is it true?
John Kerry, as the former U.S. Secretary of State?
Yeah.
I mean, I heard he died, many years ago, but then they had him appearing for a while in the news, but the videos they were showing on the news showed a much younger man than he was the last time I saw him in public. I know that he was at a base in Antarctica on November 8th, 2016, the day of the U.S. election, because I know someone who's at that meeting, and I know he was told that they had made a decision not to go with Hillary Clinton. Since that time, he disappeared, and I don't think he's around anymore, but I'm not sure on that one, okay? But, right now you have to be careful because they can make people look like they're still alive with computer graphics, but I'm pretty sure he's no longer with us and hasn't been for quite some time.
Okay, in the article I read, they said exactly that the Earth Alliance arrest him, and then they were trying to figure it out if it was a clone, actually. That's what...
Well, this whole thing about, is it clones, body doubles, computer graphics, hopefully we're going to find out the truth about that. But at the very least, they definitely have look-alike actors and computer graphics to make people who are dead look alive. The stuff about cloning, I hear a lot about it, but I need to see proof before I'll say one way or the other on that one.
Yeah. Well, it's a reality, isn't it? In animals and all
No,
this.
no, come on. You know, if you repeat something often enough, people begin to think it's reality, but that's not the case. You have to see proof. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, and I just haven't seen that proof yet on the clones. I heard a lot about it. They repeatedly tell me about this, but I still have to see it to believe it, and I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we will see all the lies and all the truth.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of things are going to come out, and it's going to be really quite a shock, and there's going to be anger, disbelief, and then sheer joy once
Yeah,
the nightmare is finally ending.
I hope so. So, what about the Emperor of Japan? Is it going to be a gold-backed monetary system there? Is it improving the situation? What's going on?
Well, certainly a new emperor in Japan means a new era, but these things take time, and until you see the removal of the Abe regime, and that's not going to happen until things happen elsewhere. Then it's not over in Japan yet. Japan will probably be the last domino to fall. That's my guess. First the United States, then Japan.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
my what I'm
so
going.
what about Q? Q is a real movement, it's a psychological operation. What's going on with Q?
Well, what's Hugh?
What's going on with the QAnon movement?
Oh, well, QAnon is definitely, the U.S. It's connected to the NSA. Hold on a sec. Hey, mush mush. I'm on the. Why don't you call me on Skype? I'm on a different Skype call now. Call me later. I'm in the middle of an interview. Like I'll call you on Skype. Later. Yeah. Yeah. Bye. That was an analog phone call. Very rare thing these days. And,
It's okay, we are live, so that's what's happened. What happens?
well, that's the real world for you. But anyway, Q is definitely if you look at it, for one thing, it's very American centered. Okay, so it's an American thing, and it's clearly connected to the intelligence apparatus and one faction behind the Trump presidency. Remember, Trump Trump presidency consists of two contradictory forces, or if you look at the people on the commercial side, the financial side, they're all connected to the Rothschild family, and you look at the other side, and it's the U.S. military-industrial complex, and they were united by a wish to overthrow the Rockefellers and the Clintons. The Clintons are a type of Rockefeller, and the Bushes, but they don't necessarily agree on things like Israel. So now that they've gotten the main enemy, defeated, they're going to have to sort out their internal contradictions. But Q is definitely on the side of the NSA and the Defense Intelligence Agency and the White Hats in the military-industrial complex. You can tell that just by the repeated confirmations they have inside information.
Yeah, they are telling truths all the time, so that's what makes me be.
Their predictions consistently come true, no matter what people say otherwise. It's a fact.
Yeah. They are telling many facts actually.
Mm.
So, what about the 100,000 indictments? Are they gonna be implemented someday? We are all waiting for this. I mean, maybe Epstein is a part of it, but
I'm waiting too, but I'm wondering. I'm not. I was brought up as an atheist, and my mother was an agnostic, and so. But you have these gnostics talking about 144,000 archons or something, or archons, who are the problem. And I wonder, is it actually going to be 144,000 indictments? I mean, that would be quite something. That would be like a biblical thing coming true. But so far, we haven't seen it. I mean, it's all sealed. So until you see it, don't believe it. I tend to focus on my eyes. By the way, I'm not atheist myself. I believe there's a creator. We didn't create ourselves. Something else created us. That means there is a creator. And that means that to respect the creator, you have to respect the creation, which means you have to respect other human beings and nature. That much I think we can all agree on. But anyway, let's see if all these arrests take place or not. Don't believe it until you see it. But the Epstein thing is certainly a good start.
Yeah, it's a good start. I mean, it may if John Kerry is true, it will be also a good. But the murder, no,
Oh, wait, look, John McCain was arrested and executed. George Bush Jr. was arrested and executed. Pope Benedict was fired. Things
yeah,
have happening, you know. It's not
yeah,
like nothing
but it
happened.
was secret. For the most of the planet, they just died of cancer. It's not so. Uh,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We need a Nuremberg type public trial that everybody can see.
yeah, that's the
and,
thing.
and I agree with you on that. We have to. We don't. Let's not rest until we see that. We don't want one secret group replacing another secret group. That's not what we're about.
Yeah, I agree. So so to conclude and finish this interview, can you tell us something positive about the situation in the planet? What do you think is going to
Okay,
happen?
so there's a lot of good news happening that they're actually doing a lot to help the environment already. They've slowed down deforestation. There's actually forests growing overall on the planet, and they're doing a lot of work to protect endangered species. And there's less poor people now than ever before, and there's almost no war going on. So there's a lot of good stuff has already begun. And the problem was that the news by its nature is kind of dark. For example, if a man goes home to his happy family and has a nice dinner and goes to bed, that's not news. But if a man goes home and kills his family with an axe, that's news. So when you read the news, you get a view that the world's a lot worse than it really is. And the fact is that most people are going home to loving families and having a nice life. And let's not forget that.
Yeah, that's true. Most people just want a peaceful life, isn't it? Filled with love and that's
Yeah.
it, really.
And it's happening. There's a lot more good news than bad news out there, but unfortunately, the good news just isn't as reported as it should be, as often as much as it should be.
Yeah, that's totally
Okay.
true.
Well, thanks
Okay,
for talking
thank
to
you
me.
very much, Benjamin, and have a wonderful